And we're live. Midlife Gaming Podcast coming to you from the eye of the storm. We're having some technical difficulties, so we won't be able to see Steve's lovely face today. If you're watching us, if you're listening to us, you'll still get him. So good for you. Today in the news, not a whole lot of big things happened, other than a new Switch being announced. But we're also going to talk about Atari and seeing if they can kind of break their way back into the gaming space. Let's see. Steve, how have you been doing? Is the storm bad in your area yet, or no? It's just something weird's happening.
No, not really. I mean, it's been raining, but it hasn't been horrible, so I'm kind of surprised. But yeah, it might even be something on my computer, but like I could tell just in Discord where we record at, like that first your video wasn't loading up at all, and then I was talking and you weren't responding, so I knew there was something going on. But it looks like I'm having better luck using my phone's LTE than I am with our internet right now. So
and the landlines. All right, well let's get into it then. First up is, hang on. That's weird. Chrome did not want to load that for a second. Let me remake it. There we go. Here it is. All right, so first up, we have a new Switch subtitled OLED model was announced earlier today. Initial impressions, Steve. You know what this new one is. It's not what we all wanted. It's not the Switch Pro. But what are your initial impressions on it?
My initial thoughts are, I mean, I was more interested in just kind of like their messaging. They called it the newest entry into the family of Switch consoles, which lets me, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious that this isn't the last that we'll see in terms of entries to the Switch. Obviously, the fan feedback today was pretty harsh. Like, a lot of people were upset just based off their own, months and months of rumors of the Switch Pro coming out, which
right.
in a lot of ways, I'd say this is probably like half of the way to being a Switch Pro, at least with the upgraded screen and all that kind of stuff. But what people really want is the additional power. And as you kind of mentioned earlier, having more power when docked. Like, it's great that they have more power when undocked, but more people wanted to see the docks, get pushed up to 4K. So,
right. And so for anyone that doesn't know yet, some quick little stats of the new one. So the screen's being upgraded from the current Switch, which has a 6.2 screen from this corner, if you're watching, to this corner. What they've done is they've kind of just removed the bevel a lot, and that way the actual structure of the Switch, the new one, is still the same. From everything that I was able to pull up, the accessories all seem to still work with this Switch model, this OLED model. Obviously, watch out for like screen protectors. You might want to make sure that those are the proper size if you're moving forward with purchasing one of these. But cases, carrying bags, it all look the same. The Joy-Cons are the exact same Joy-Cons that come with the other ones. There might be some slight improvements on the inside, but right now there's no real evidence to lean that way at all. I would hope that they would have addressed, the Joy-Con drift shenanigans, but who knows? We really won't know until someone gets their hands on these and does a full teardown. One of the interesting enhancements, though, is that they've brought this new dock, which visually it looks better than the old dock, but it also includes an Ethernet port on it. And what you can kind of see in this image that they have in their official video about it, it looks like there might be some active cooling involved in this dock as well. I know there's some vent ports in the back of the current one and everything that kind of just rely on the current Switch's venting capabilities. But this one looks like, just from eyeballing it, again, details are still a little bit sparse on the inner workings of some of these parts. But it looks like there might be an active cooling solution, which would be great because my Switch gets lava hot whenever I'm playing, Smash or something on the TV for too long. Let's see. So what else was on there? Yeah, the Switch itself, instead of having just the flimsy little right-sided dock like this that I'm showing you, the entire back panel is part of the stand for it. Let me get to it in this image real quick. Yeah, it's a wide adjustable stand. Looks way sturdier than the one that's currently on the normal dockable Switch. They've upgraded the internal storage to 64 gigabytes. I don't know if that's going to still be enough, especially if you're like me who does digital downloads on their Switch. I have a couple of cartridge games for it, like ones that I expect to just trade back in to GameStop or something like that. But most of the titles that I know I'm going to keep for a while, I end up just doing a digital download so I don't have to juggle through them. And I don't think 64 gigs is quite enough for that. But if you are the kind of gamer that, or if you're buying for the kind of gamer that does more of the cart-based games, excuse me, I think 64 gigs will be perfectly fine to get them off the floor running. They're going to have it available starting on October 8th for $349.99. So in a little over 3 months, and it's going to be about $50 more than the current Switch. Steve, do you think that they're going to see or that we're going to see a price drop on the original Switch model, the LCD?
No, in Nintendo fashion, I think it'll probably stay the exact same.
Yeah.
To be completely honest.
As long as it's flying off the shelves, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean they already have that. You know, them lowering that model means that they also have to lower the Switch Lite model. So I think like they'll, this is again that whole family of Switch things. They'll have the Switch Lite, the regular Switch, the Switch OLED, and then eventually the Switch Pro, which who knows what that'll be. But I think that'll have all their bases covered and all the price points covered. Because isn't the Switch Lite? It's only $200, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's like $199,
$250, something like that. So I mean, at that point, it's still affordable. You don't really need to lower.
Might be $250.
Yeah, but interesting stuff though.
Yeah, $199 is what the Switch Lite is going for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things though is that we didn't get anything about battery life or really any type of performance gains that you might get from this model. And with it being only a $50 difference, I think that difference is going to be visual only. OLED looks amazing, so I hope they went with a good provider for LED screens. You'll get some battery savings off of it, depending on the kind of games that you're playing, especially if it's like a darker game for scientific reasons I won't go into here. Darker titles on an OLED screen use less power. That screen uses less electricity to power the display. So you might get some of that. There might be a small performance boost because it is unlikely that they're going to use the exact same APU or processor for this. They might have like a slight boosted version of the same one just to help drive that extra amount of screen real estate. But why do you think they didn't announce this for E3, Steve?
Probably because if it was announced at E3, it would have been they knew that it was going to be received somewhat negatively. That's why there wasn't a big Switch event for this or anything like that. It's kind of one of those things like we got to do it, because it is another SKU for us, but we don't want to make a big hoopla about it because we know, kind of the rumors are gotten so outrageous that they knew that this was going to be underwhelming. So you think back to the E3 they had, where a lot of people called them the winners of E3 with their announcements. If they had this also thrown in there, it would have kind of set
them back a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that was a smart move for them to do this kind of out of cycle, especially because it's not a big tentpole release. Like, yes, it's going to sell, but it's not intended to be like, oh, look at this huge blow that we're this huge blow that we're firing out, or this huge shot we're firing. It's like, yeah, just another thing we're doing,
Yeah, I think if they were a little bit more public about like battery life, they might have won some more people over. I hope that it's not a loss of battery life, because the original Switch model on Nintendo's website boasts a 4.4 to 10-hour battery range, and on that same little stat that they have it, they say it can vary, blah blah blah. But for games like Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, they expect it to have an average battery life of about 5.5 hours. So I would be interested to see like same comparison. If I load up Breath of the Wild on this Switch, will I still get on average about 5.5 hours of gameplay? Will I get less? Will I get more? So I think there's just a lot of people on the internet have questions. In normal Nintendo fashion, they're like, "Oh, big screen, how about that? Come buy it." So we'll see about that. I don't think this is going to be a buy for me. I have the original Switch that I'm very happy with. My wife has the Switch Lite, which she's very happy with. She doesn't care about the TV docking capabilities. Steve, what about for you? Is this a buy, or maybe
Oh
if
no,
your Switch breaks?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't play my current Switch enough for me to justify even upgrading to a Pro, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and in the chat we see that all they wanted from Nintendo is Breath of the Wild 2. I agree. I'm ready for Breath of the Wild 2. I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype like most things don't. But we'll see. I'm still excited. I like Breath of the Wild 1, even though it felt empty in most parts. I'm still excited for it. I do have a question that I didn't take down in our notes for this, Steve. Do you think that this might just be the successor to the LCD model of Switch? Like, hey, because we all know that the supply chain is kind of knotted up and tied all in circles right now. Do you think that they go, hey, listen, there's some parts in here that we know we're going to need for the, upcoming Switch Pro model. The new fancy dock looks great. It definitely looks more modern than the weird brick thing that came with the original one. Do you think that we'll see in the not too distant future where they're like, hey, listen, we're still going to support as part of the Switch family the original LCD Switch, but like moving forward, we're going to go with this just the OLED model?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can see that happening. Maybe a year from now, something like that.
Right.
It's not in our story this week, but Oculus pretty much did the same thing recently. The Rift S was available for sale for about a year. They kind of gave a notice like, hey, these are no longer going to be available retail. You can only get them online. And then I think it was, if not today, maybe last week, someday they announced that
I think it was just
they will no
yesterday.
longer- Yeah, so they'll no longer be selling them. So I mean, that's something you do eventually. You kind of look at your ROI of like, hey, do we need to keep this manufacturer line up for this product that's kind of at the end of its tail cycle anyway?
Mhm.
Or yeah, so I think so. It just makes sense, especially in this case. I mean, where we're talking about like a $50 difference, it makes sense to just go ahead and get that. A year from now, drop the price $50, get a little press from that, and now this is your standard model, and then the Pro becomes your Pro model. Because even I thought it was kind of funny that they didn't give this a fancy name. Just hey,
Right.
it's a Switch OLED, which I kind of think again kind of leaves credibility to that whole idea of they'll phase out the original Switch and this will become the regular Switch, and then like resellers and stuff like that. It makes it easy for them. Like, oh, which Switch are you selling? It's the original LCD
Right.
model versus the OLED model. So yeah, I see that happening.
Yeah, that was around the lines of what I thought was probably going to take place in the next like year, maybe year and a half, depending on how well they can source their materials that they need for the OLED model. I know display manufacturers really aren't super feeling the hurt right now. They are, just not as much as some of the other areas of the industry. So it's very likely that they're like, hey, listen, we can't make this LCD panel anymore. You've run out of factory time. You got to upgrade or figure something out. And they're like, all right, cool. We'll give them a bigger screen. It'll be OLED. We'll call it even Stevens. Make $50 off the top.
Yeah.
I think that is all for this. I had a line for target audience, but I feel like we covered that already. Target audience is pretty much someone that doesn't have a Switch already. Next up, unless you got something else, Steve. You got something else?
No, sir.
You got some more glorious information? No? All right. We'll move on. So next up is Atari is looking to make premium PC games again. What is your personal history with Atari games?
I mean, I can't honestly even tell you off the top of my head the Atari games I played outside of their, kind of their classic stuff.
See, I had a very same problem, and it turns out because there aren't really too many modern retakes by Atari, most of their big money makers are just rebranding or remaking or mobile ports of their classic titles. I have a list here of all of their IPs from their own investors meeting that they had, and none of them really ring out as like modern hits. I know that they have helped other dev teams. Like I remember playing some Transformers titles for like PS2 and GameCube that were helped out by Atari and everything. So those aren't there. But if they're making uh brand new, air quotes, premium PC games again, I do wonder what IPs they're looking to take forward, if they're going to take any of them forward, or if they're just going to try and start new, because they have a racing game. um oh man, what is it? I don't know, hang on real quick. Let me get that out. All right. They have a racing game that did see a little bit of life in the Xbox era, or the original Xbox era. And they have a couple of other like PC games, like RTS strategy games. So I don't know. How does a company that has been so well known for titles like Centipede and the likes of classic arcade vibe games come to make new AAA PC titles?
Hell if I know, man. It's gonna be it's definitely gonna be a struggle for them because they need a new IP, and the problem with IP is you need money to do it, and I don't really see them. I don't see them investing in that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard to look at their previous sales, and really they've been crushing it on the mobile space. I guess just targeting, having a specific audience of like, oh, kind of cashing in on the nostalgia factor. But I don't know what they can do to really, unless they just take one of their IPs and just destroy it and use the name for it. Like there's one in here called Sword Quest. They have like a bunch of different Earth worlds or whatever, but we're talking like, if you could see this up on the screen, Steve, this is old like Atari 2600 games. So I think that maybe they use name familiarity to make a new title, but I don't think we see anything of the likes that they've already been pushing out or that they've pushed out already.
Mic check. Can you hear me, Archie?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Archie?
Yellow. Nope, I lost him. All right. Well, we're going to keep on moving forward anyways. So, currently they are known for some games that put them on the map years and years ago. Like they've done retro packs, repacks. They've been on almost every console since the Atari 2600 in some way, shape, or form, even if most of the time it was just either slight remakes or arcade, classic bundling. For a company that has thrived mainly on nostalgia for the last couple of decades, I don't know what actions they can really take to become a big competitor. It might have to be some completely off the wall IP in order to make this happen. Steve, do I have you back?
Yes.
All right, cool. Let's see here. All right, so that's really all I had on the Atari stuff. Were there any points that you wanted to add in?
No, just if you could help me out, Archie, we have a special guest. Could you
We
change
do.
the permissions so he could talk in this channel?
Oh, yeah.
I trying to, but my internet keeps timing out, so it's not letting it happen.
Why is it muting him?
Because I have this channel, like people can view it, but they can't. So if you change the permissions on the channel and just allow him to speak, he'll be okay.
Hang on, real quick. Let's make this happen. It's our good buddy Thomas is trying to make his way in here. Let's see
thank
here.
you for your patience,
Edit,
listeners and watchers and all that.
edit channel permissions. Speak. I don't know what you did in here, Steve. This is crazy. Let me just change his thing real quick. Is there a different role I can drop him in temporarily?
It would have to be admin, but if you just change permissions to speak, he'll be able to speak.
His permissions or the channel permissions?
So under permissions, it says everyone. Just scroll down and change that to speak because they still can't connect unless we drag them in here. So
permissions, everyone. It's speak is green.
Oh, then he just needs to unmute himself then.
Yeah, Thomas, unmute yourself. Mute members? Yeah, no.
I don't think we can unmute him.
No.
All right, but yeah, we can continue on until he figures that out. But yeah, Thomas, you just need to unmute yourself.
All right, no worries. Let's go back to. All right, so you had nothing left for the Atari situation. What genre do you think? Because they said that they already have projects in the works, but I'm with you. I don't think they're dropping the millions of dollars to make a AAA title. They might be doing like a couple of low-key Steam releases, but what genre do you think they're going to be sticking to?
Oh, it's hard to say. So I mean, they were always kind of king of those little arcadey type titles, you know, where there was. I mean, like, has anyone ever seen the end screen to an Atari game? Like, very few people have.
Very few. So not me.
I think, like, if I was in charge there, what I would do, our first thing would be re-familiarizing, you know, the older generation and the new gamers of, you know, kind of our heritage. Like, let's go back into the vault. Let's bring, you know, Pac-Man. Let's bring Alaga, all those games back out in a new classy way, probably on the Switch and Steam, like you said, you know, where it makes most sense. And then from there, you know, use the profits from that to look and see what type of indie stuff we could put out. Because I don't think that there's no way that they come out with some AAA title. Maybe they do. Maybe they just risk it all on one Hail Mary to kind of do that. But I think it's going to be a slow rise back into them being like a modern competitor.
That's what I'm thinking as well. I mean, I'm trying to think of what Test Drive, by the way, was the game I was thinking of earlier. That is like their IP that has been established across several, you know, consoles. They even had all the way up to the 360 era, and a couple of the other ones made their way to arcades and PC as well. So, I mean, they might stick to racing. I don't know if that's really a market that needs another title. There's a bunch of different devs have that space kind of, you know, locked down. So, I don't know. I'll tell you this, the Transformers games that I played back in the day that were built by them, I enjoyed. Like the Minicon, I think it was like Revenge of Cybertron, and then there was like the Minicon War or something like that. I don't remember specifically, just because it's been so long since I played them. Roller Coaster Tycoon is also technically still theirs, even though we have a spiritual successor in the form of Coaster Planet, which was devved by a bunch of the original Roller Coaster Tycoon devs. So I don't know, maybe we'll see another one of those come up. Again, a space that really is already filled. I don't know why they would randomly just decide to drop in on it. But they got a lot of good names that a lot of people will recognize off the bat, like, oh, that's you know, that game, or Centipede, or whatever the other games are. Centipede is the one that Missile Command was the other one I was trying to think of. So, you know, they have a lot of names they can throw around, but I agree with you. It's going to be a slow rise. Thomas, are you back into working fashion?
I think I do.
Oh, and you sound so crisp. I love it. All right, so give us your take on the Switch.
I'm not impressed. I don't think the big screen's going to do it for me. Even as beautiful as it'll look, I want, like what you said, battery life. And I'm interested to see what when the Pro comes out, what that's going to be.
If it even comes out. Now, I will say this. We all did have before, like I think it was like maybe a month before E3 when all the Pro rumors were showing up. We did all have a kind of estimation on if a Pro was going to see the light of day. Steve, you said that, correct me if I'm wrong because my memory is terrible, but you said that you thought that we would see a Pro by the end of this year. Do you still hold true to that, or do you think this is like their answer for now and we might get a Pro later?
Now that this came out, I don't think I'm going to see a Pro this year. I think this is, so what is it? It's July now. I mean, there is still opportunity for it. You know, something maybe like right before Thanksgiving to be announced. But at this point, I think a Pro is probably on the plate for next year, if on the plate at all. Yeah, this came out of left field. I would have not had this on my bingo card at all.
Yeah,
for them to
definitely
maybe
not.
say just a screen update that did not come to mind at all.
Thomas, what changes to this OLED model that we have now would you think need to happen in order for it to be a good buy for you?
Oh, the price first off.
Yeah. What about any of the enhancements that they made? Do any of them, other than the screen size, which is just like the obvious, difference here? Everything else just kind of seems like, oh, well, we can't just make it a bigger size. Let's, have a more stable back or something along those lines. Is there any other details about it that you're like, oh, that's pretty neat? Not really. All right, let's see. So what about the Atari situation, Thomas? What's your take on that? Do you think they can just hit it out of the ballpark with a new title, or do you think they're going to lean more on their established history?
They're going to lean more on the history. That's what made them famous, and the money.
Yep,
and the money.
And the money. the money definitely does do it to them. It always comes back to the money. All right, well, that's it for the news today. Now we move along to a little section called On Our Radar, where we talk about a game that kind of caught our interest and will probably be on our wish list, if not purchased here shortly. I'm going to start up first because it's kind of a smaller title. It is by Oculus. It's called Arcsmith. And the premise is that it's kind of like a hands-on puzzle solving type game. I haven't seen too many reviews on it, but just concept alone, I was like, oh, hey, that looks like something that I might be interested in, because it's still VR. It's puzzle solving, which is good for me. The only issue I take with it is that officially it only supports the Quest and the Quest 2, and I'm still rocking a Rift. So even though it does show up in my my Oculus store, so I don't know if that's just like branding. Steve, have you seen anything like that where there's titles that are only available for the Quest or Quest 2 and can't be played at all on the normal plug-in hardware?
I don't think I have seen that yet. No.
Yeah, it seemed very interesting.
Maybe it does exist, but I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so it looks like the goal of this is you have different problems you have to solve, like in normal puzzle situation. You have different modules that you kind of pick up and clip clap together and build all that out. And yeah, it looks pretty fun. I didn't see what the price was on this, just as add to wish list. I don't think it's out yet, so that might be the reason why I'm not seeing this. Yeah, it's not out yet. All right. The 29th of July. If I just waited a little bit longer, it would have told me right there in front of me. All right, so the next up, though, is Steve. Why don't you tell us about your On the Radar game? I might have lost him. Well, maybe I did lose him. Thomas, do you have any type of game that you're looking forward to playing?
I do. Skyward Sword for the Switch comes out next week.
Ugh. Did you play the original?
Loved it.
Did you really? I struggle to even watch people play it.
It was great, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Did you use the actual Motion Plus controls back on the Wii?
Yes, sir. That was probably the most exercise I've ever had in years.
Probably the most exercise a lot of people had in years. So the remake for that one, I don't have this pulled up right here in front of me, but the remake for that one, Skyward Sword, will have a controller mode as well, but it will still officially have the motion controls. Do you intend on using the motion controls to relive nostalgia, or are you going to be more back to the controller gaming?
I'm gonna use like I did back in the day, do the gestures.
Just moving your sword up and swishing it around all over the place.
It was so cool pulling it from the back, like you were unsheathing it. It was
Yep.
awesome.
Was pretty interesting. I think back in that day, my type of game was the was it Metroid Prime 3? I think they did like a remake bundle of the Metroid Prime series, and I don't remember if 3 was on GameCube or if it was on the Wii, but I know that they had motion controls were built into even the remakes for it. And I was just, blasting all over the place. You used the Wii nunchuck thing. I don't know if that's the official name for it, but the left-handed thumb part, you like rip doors off. Hey, we got Steve back. I hear you typing away.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Doing good. So tell us about RoboCop Rogue City, Steve.
I actually don't know anything about RoboCop Rogue City, other than it got announced today. I saw the trailer, and it's RoboCop, and yeah, it's RoboCop. I don't care what the hell they do. I'm gonna buy it.
You're gonna buy it because it's RoboCop.
There is one potentially kind of scary thing about it, though. I noticed it was from the team that did that last Terminator game, and that last Terminator game was absolute fucking trash. So
you're talking about Teon?
It's like Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator Resistance.
Yeah, it was terrible, terrible. Like, it looked phenomenal. Like everything like that looked phenomenal, but the gameplay was just so repetitive and dumb, and the AI literally like they just walked into you, and because of you know how if you've seen a Terminator movie, you know how they kind of move around. So it's that slow pace. It's like, okay, there's really not a challenge to this at all. But the graphics were pretty good.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The graphics do look good. It has a very positive rating on Steam right now. Yeah.
It must have been cheap at some point. Oh, okay, yeah, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's 24 right now. Let's see. I don't know. It looks let's go back to this page for RoboCop real quick. It's definitely just a teaser thing. Cuz it has a release date of 2023 right now. So I don't know. There's a lot of time for it to be good or bad, but it's a good story. Was RoboCop in Detroit? Is that the setting for RoboCop, the movie? Old Detroit. Oh, it's right here, staring me in my face. Yeah, of course it is. Let's see. I think I might have lost Steve again, which is fine. We're going, in case anyone's wondering, we're going through a tropical storm right now. So I'm surprised that my internet hasn't gone, even though I don't think it's actually raining outside yet, but normally the wind is enough to take down something down south that'll ruin it for everybody. Thomas, what are you playing? We're done with the radar. We don't have video game 20 questions this week just because we are having some technical difficulties, so I thank you for sticking through with us. What are you playing, Thomas?
I'm currently still playing Link's Awakening for the Switch.
You liking it? Are you enjoying it, Thomas?
Yeah, you hear me?
Oh yeah, I hear you now.
There we go. Yeah, I'm loving it, man. It takes me back.
It's good. Do you like that art style? It's been real hit or miss for some people.
Normally I don't, but for this one.
Oh, I think I lost it again. All right. Well, we're having a ton of technical difficulties, so let's just go ahead and call it there. Thank you, everybody, for sticking through with us. Be safe out there. Love you. Take care of the people around you. And we'll see you next week. Bye.